minutes. I'll start with a very brief introduction of Odin School, quick, and then we will step into the discussion today. As you all know, Odin School is online upskilling platform, and one of the areas we specialize in is data sciences. Over the last 2 years, in fact, next month we are going to be 2. We have done a lot of work in upskilling working professionals and fresh graduates in data sciences, and many of our students have made successful transitions into data sciences. This event today, the panel discussion, especially focuses on how the jobs in this domain have evolved over the last few years, and what is it that we can look forward to. I'm very excited that we have technical leads and managers from different companies, some of the biggest companies here, to give us a technology perspective of how this domain has evolved technologically, and what is it that the aspirants should prepare for if they want to build a career in data science. So let me quickly introduce our panelists. I'll keep the introductions brief because I would want them to talk more about themselves. We have with us Ashok Bansal. Very good morning, Ashok.
Good morning, Shruti.
Ashok is the Director of Business Analytics at IKS Health, prior to which he was a manager in analytics at United Health Group. So he's got more than a decade of experience in analytics. So looking forward for a lot of insights from you, Ashok. We also have with us Anand Narayanan. He's the founder of his startup Aspect Skyer, before which he was with Bosch India. He was a general manager at Bosch India, leading product and business development, IoT and UX, before which he was the vice president and senior engineer at Goldman Sachs. For 9 years, he also has worked in Oracle, Larsen & Toubro, and different companies. Thank you, Anand, for being here. Looking forward for some really good insights from you.
Thank you.
We have with us also Murlidhar. He is the staff data engineer at Walmart Global Tech India. Previous to which he was a senior data engineer at Walmart, and before that he was the senior data engineer at Intuit India for several years. So we have a rich panel today. When I say rich, I mean rich in terms of the experience that they cumulatively bring onto this panel. So let us not waste any more time. First, let us start off with introductions. Ashok, let me start with you. Could you please tell us more about yourself, especially about the work that you have done in the analytics space, please?
Yeah, sure. So, well, Shruti, thank you for having me here. Good morning, everyone. So I'll say that it's been 15 years that I'm working in healthcare industry. So I started my career as an entry level position in healthcare, and gradually upgraded myself in the data management profiles. So starting on the SQL only. So over the period of time, as new technologies coming in, and as the new methods have been introduced in the data management, we got a lot of opportunities to work on the different tools. The work that used to be done in an hours, we were able to manage those works, in more easier way and more effective ways. So, I'm keep seeing that, so there were just one or two major tools that used to be used, when it comes to the data analysis, or to visualizing the data. But as we speak now, there are plenty of tools that are available. New capabilities have been introduced. So yeah, I got the opportunities to to work majority of the tools. So the several analytical models that we have been able to work on. As we proceed to the later discussion, I think I would be able to share some of the experiences and some of the work that we were able to do in the analytics world.
Sure, great. I mean, 15 plus years of experience, that's quite a lot in one domain. I'm sure you have seen a lot of transition in the domain itself for the last 15 years, and I'm sure you're, all of us have been pleasantly surprised with the way this entire industry has evolved. So looking
Mm.
forward for discussion ahead, Ashok. Thank you for that introduction. Murli, coming to you, Walmart is another major e-commerce, one of the biggest in the world, and we know how dependent e-commerce in businesses are on data. So please help us understand a little more about you and your work in the data domain, please.
Yeah, sure, Shruti. Thank you. Thanks for having me here as a panelist. So I'll little bit introduce myself. So I started my journey into the IT industry around 12 years back as an junior data engineer, where I had joined Hewlett Packard, which is HP, as a data engineer. Started as a fresher from there and learned more about data, because that was a manufacturing domain where I was working on a product called, HP's product basically, which is printhead, like how printing happens and all, right? So to understand that more about that, it was the data that we used to gather for the product and have analytics done on top of it, and later on reporting like how that product performs and all. So that was in the manufacturing domain, and then starting, then I had a 4 year stint over there, and then moved to Intuit, which is basically a financial tax domain. Um, all of like most of the US states file the taxes on the Intuit's product. So there was a product which was for doing a funnel analysis to see where in their product the people are dropping and finally filing the taxes. So to understand that, that was a major the product that I worked on. So that also had a stint of around 4 years, and currently working with Walmart the last 4 years. As you know, Walmart is the biggest retailer both in stores and e-commerce. So it's been really great to work in data domain, because if you are a data enthusiast, right, you'll be able to connect with data and derive more basically insights into data that can give your company a good a base to set up your business around. So that is what my experience for last 12 years into this data industry. And I'm currently working as a staff data engineer, and it's been like for last 12 years I'm into data, and has gained more experience around the tools around it, which I can go over when in the further discussions. Thank you.
Sure, sure. Looking forward to that. You must also have seen a lot of transition in this domain, very quick transitions. So we will pick your brain more on how it evolved over the years. Anand, coming to you, very excited to know more about you, because you have had diverse experience, including entrepreneurship. So could you please help us understand a little more about your journey, please?
Sure. Thanks, Shruti. So first off, congratulations to Arden School and best wishes to Vijay and the team, because you come a long way as a startup in this space. Second off, thank you for inviting me for this webinar, Evolution of Jobs in Data Sciences, a Technology Perspective. What I hope to bring to the table and my experience is I'm passionate about solving business challenges using the right technology solutions with a high degree of customer centricity and user experience. My current work revolves around drone data analytics, where we deploy deep learning using computer vision to solve challenges in the construction, infrastructure, and renewable energy space. Prior to this, like you had mentioned, I've done stints in different corporates, engineering corporate and a financial technology corporate. So whatever little knowledge I have, I'll try to bring to the table so that it benefits the wider audience in this group, Shruti. So looking forward to this.
Thank you so much. Coming back to you, Ashok, you have a very rich experience in analytics and business intelligence, especially in the health sector. Could you help us understand how the analytics technology, specifically in the health sector, has evolved, and particularly in IKS Health? What is the kind of work being done, and how has the evolution been in the last 15 years or so?
Okay. Yeah, so I would say that yes, uh, definitely, the change is visible, while adapting the various data science methods. So previously, when I started my career, all the insights and what to know more about the healthcare, the dependency was with the operations. So, we can know more and more what's going on the ground, right? But as more tools are available, the various methodologies are available, the data teams are capable enough to derive all those insights. So yeah, the operations role will always be there, but the dependencies are not that high, which used to be, when various methods were not there. So let me give you an example. So uh, we developed one of the member experience journey. So our goal was to that, hey, can we measure that different members that our organization serve, what they are experiencing? Are they happy? Do they need something else? Are they looking for some other plans in the market? What can be done there? So connecting with the different processes, knowing what their what they do, how their role plays in the healthcare life cycle, and we were able to find out all those hints with the data that our organization was managing, because we have those capabilities to process that humongous data, which was not at that scale. If I talk about, like, 10 years or 15 years back. So yes, I would say that the work used to be done before as well, but the scale has definitely increased.
Right.
So
So essentially, you're saying that the availability of data is much more, the scale at which we're working is much more, and we are able to identify needs of the customers better using these technologies now when compared to before. Am I right in summarizing what you said, Ashok?
that's right. That's right. And just one more thing to add. So the data we used to had before as well, right? But we get the feasibility to process that.
Right,
Before we were not able to do that. That we have the billions of data available, but how to process them. Which tools we have. So now these advanced technologies have made it possible.
right, right. Ashok, I'll come back to you on that question. But Murli, I would like to take your input also here. You come from Walmart, right? Which is another, like you said, one of the biggest retailers and e-commerce in the world. And you work in the data engineering domain. That is your area of specializations. So how has data engineering as a domain evolved over the years? And how does it help a huge behemoth like Walmart enhance their productivity and profitability more?
Yeah, basically, as I have worked through all these three companies which I mentioned earlier, like these are data-rich companies. Basically, in manufacturing, the data is huge, it gets produced huge. But as Ashok said, like basically, if you are not able to get good insights about the data, then the data just lies there and it's just growing. The data is growing. humongously across everywhere. Like the IoT devices generates the data, our mobile devices generates the data. So to start with the data, right? Data is an information which is stored. Basically, it can be structured or unstructured data around. And if you can make you right use of this data to derive some insights, to get something out of it, then only kind of a data enthusiast who's really want to understand the data can try to get some insights out of it. So earlier there were many other tools which were not so evolved to get what we are today, because the world is moving towards data science and AI, wherein the data, the predictions, building data model, so building machine learning models for predicting the data, what can happen in future based on the current historical data that the machine learning model has learned about, right? So to derive these insights, uh, there is a intermediate field which is called as data engineering field, which is basically very important field before moving to machine learning, which I'll call, because this is field where a data engineer, I'll go through a life of a data engineer on day-to-day basis, what he does actually. So main thing, the data science models, right, who needs to perform on the data has to be has to get a right data for them to perform or further when we implement that machine learning model. So to prepare that data engineering does a good job over there, wherein a data engineer has to extract the data from different data sources which are required for the machine learning model considered, or for a data analytics to derive a report out of it. So he has to work with different data sources to extract the data on day-to-day basis. He has to cleanse the data. Data mining has to also be done before the data is put in a right format. So the format of the data has to be also checked on day-to-day basis, because if the data is available in some Excel file, how that I can convert that to a table that needs to be stored into a database. So these all things the data engineer does initially, then works on the business logic that is involved to transform the data, which can derive insights. So there are, in databases, there are different schema models called as star schema or Snowflake schema. This helps to arrange the data in a proper format. I'll use a terminologies like dimensions and fact. So dimensions are the data which is stored for a particular example. I'll take product as a dimension, and fact is nothing but where a matrix is stored. Matrix is like sales is a metric, so that is stored in a fact. So these are the day-to-day activities a data engineer does to store the data in a right format. The same data can be used for further data analytics or machine learning models in the on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Sure. So if you were to kind of concise it and say how is the same function kind of done a few years ago compared to how the same thing is done now, what is the main difference you think in the way technology has changed that is making it easier or more efficient for data engineering?
Yeah. So a few years back, you might have heard, big data was not in picture. Like data was getting generated, but big data came into existence like around couple of decades back, like around 2000 it started on, wherein prior to that the data was analyzed or stored in a traditional formats, like in a database, in a file, or in an Excel file. So these were the older traditional approaches were followed earlier. And when moving to the 2000s and all, there were certain tools which came into existence to analyze this data, to transform this data and derive insights. So few years back, when big data was evolving around Hadoop and related technologies to how to store the data, like Hadoop evolved with starting with MapReduce, which is another technology within Hadoop, which processes the data by in an optimized format. And after MapReduce, there came a Spark engine, which was working on top of HDFS files and all, which help to transfer process the data in a very uh, faster format than eventually we used to do it in traditional ways. So traditionally, in the legacy ways where old we used to process the data like for 2 to 3 hours, now it is just done in 15 minutes or 15-20 minutes because the technology has evolved so faster in recent
Right.
years.
Thank you, Muralidhar. I'll come back with you. I'll come back to you with a few more questions on that. Anand, I'd like to know from you. You have worked across different domains across the world. You've definitely seen a lot of evolution in technology in this, and right now you're working in some very emerging areas like drone technologies and all that. So, what is your take on how technology has evolved in the data domain, and where do you see it going actually?
Yeah, data domain is extremely large, Shruti. So imagine you want to drink a glass of water, and we go and stand under a waterfall to drink that glass of water, right? So we will always be shafted around with immense amount of data that is being thrown at us, and what will probably decide the future is taking that glass of water which will make sense to get the job done. It's like drinking water from a fire hydrant, akin to that. If you look at the app areas of ordering food, mobility, commodities, they've taken high precedence in the last couple of years. There have been more inventions in the last 20 years, 25 years after internet than the last 200 years after the industrial revolution. So emerging technology and data domains will always be an evergreen area. And the exciting part of this is the innovation and connecting the dots. That is where the true engineering skill sets would lie. If I look at certain statistics, in 2016, there were 21 million software engineers worldwide. In 2022, as per the Hacker Rank and a generally accepted published survey, there are about 26.9 million software engineers worldwide. I honestly believe this is very less amount of people to address 8 billion plus population, which needs these kinds of technology solutions, which primarily thrives on data. We are looking at a 30% increase in 6 years. Now, out of this 27 million, which is bound to grow, a sizable amount of people will be data science and data engineering related software engineers, is what I feel. The specific question that you asked, we primarily look at data science and data engineering related to computer vision and to certain extent LLMs, which is large language modeling. In this space, what happens is there is a lot of data which keeps flowing in and around the domain that we are in. Consider the technologies in a new electric car, right? Cloud and edge computing that powers the networks connecting cars, applied AI and ML that enable autonomous decision making and driving logic, clean energy and sustainable consumption technologies that create the core of vehicle electrification through, and also the lightweight composites, the battery capability advancements, next gen software technologies, over the air updates. All these are extremely important to enable faster development of customer facing features and reduce the time to market. So in these itself, we have 4 domains. Just in an electric car, we are talking about cloud, we are talking about applied AI ML, we're talking about autonomous driving, we're talking about battery management systems for thermal. All these are different. If you draw a mind map, all these will spawn different threads. And if you take just one thread, if you take battery management, we are talking about multi terabytes of data, petabytes if not, on to ensure how we'll do thermal management, how we will do predictive maintenance, like Muralidhar said, right? So each of this requires a very sound knowledge of data science and applying the engineering principles like storing of data, retrieving the data from either a file system database or a relational system database, putting it on the cloud, having the right architecture in place to create that execution in milliseconds or microseconds to have a very impactful and delightful customer experience at the end.
Right. Very interesting to know that. So essentially, what all of us agree is that the potential in this domain is huge across different domains, right? Be it healthcare, be it the emerging technologies like drone, be it e-commerce. I think the more we evolve, like Anand, you said, if you draw a mind map and the threads are continuously getting amplified, multiple times. So definitely the future, if we look at it, it is, I don't know, it's kind of probably we are not even in the right place to imagine what kind of jobs and things will be available. But looking at, let us say, the near future, say next 2 years or 3 years, or say 5 years span, for somebody like you said, there's a huge shortage of talent right now. So as business leaders, as experts, technical experts, technology experts in the data science domain, when you look to hire people into your team, what is the kind of skill sets that you look for? Ashok, we'll start with you. I'll come back to you again. As a leader in business intelligence specifically, what do you look for in terms of technical skills when you're hiring a person to your team? Like, what is your expectation? Are there some specific technologies that you want aspirants to come with?
Right. Yes, I expect the person should have a good hands-on on EDAs, the exploratory data analysis. Um, I it does not matter that on which technology the person has worked. Person is good in Python or the person is good in R. But what matters to me that the EDA, experience should be very vast. Person have spent or have done a lots and lots of practice in different domains. And is able to find out more deep insights from the data. Which probably that team is not aware of, who are generating that data set. So yeah, EDA is one, and second, that how effectively they can identify the trends or the hidden patterns in the data, specifically when we are dealing with a huge data set. So, and then most of the times what happen, like as Murli said that data engineering team plays a major role when it comes to support the AI and ML projects, right? But what happens that data scientists or the BI analyst, they also have to manipulate the data marks most of the time, depending on what the end goal is. So they should have a very clear understanding on how to work on the different cloud-based technologies, or the on premise, and the query the tables, effectively build the different data marts. So they should have a good experience on SQL, BigQuery, Hadoop, and know some of the the complex ways of manipulating the data as well. And
Right.
apart from the technical skills, I look for the soft skills as well, because I think that is uh, one of the factor that can make your work successful. So if I have, because what happens in BI, sometimes we are able to derive some of the hard facts that business has not seen, right? Now if I'm not good enough in the storytelling, or my my conflict management is not that good, I may not be able to, give 100% to the work that I have done, or that my team has done. So yes, the conflict management and the data storytelling, if they can start working on, or doing the practice on that, that will definitely make them uh, confident, in solving the different business problems. These are the things that I always look for.
Great. Now, in the last 15 years, so you have grown from strength to strength, from position to position, before you became the director of business intelligence, right? So, for somebody looking at that kind of a career graph, or looking at that kind of a career growth, how do you think they should actually prepare themselves for this kind of a journey? Because when we talk of a job in data science, we're not just looking at a job for now. We're essentially looking at somebody building a career. The visibility has to be for the next decade or so. How should a person actually prepare, for transitioning into this kind of a domain? I mean, how did you do it? Any tips or something that you could give participants today?
Well, I would say, take the step by step approach. Don't start directly with AI or ML. Take the first, set the ground. Learn what the data is. Learn what all the data elements are. The classification of the data. So once that ground is clear, if we go as simple as that, if we go to YouTube, we will get to know a lot of good content, on the data understanding, on the data management. Spending at least a day or two, they would be able to grab, that how to classify the data, what is the categorical data, so once that is clear, right, then just look for some of the good certification courses, where they can learn about the different tools, like BigQuery, or the Microsoft Azure, that how they can process that data. And after that, the end goal would be that they have to go with the stats. So if they have the stats background, it could learn, how you can implement that in Python, in R, how you can learn and adapt the different BI methods, or the different ML algorithms that are in place. So, let's say that the complete 1 year roadmap that we have to learn about all these methods. And post that, I think the time that we have spent to learn them, we have to spend almost 2x of that time to practice, because I believe that practice and practice, only that can justify that 1 year of time, that we have invested, to learn all of that, working in different domains. And I think we are glad that we have a lot of forums available. Like if I categorically talk about Kaggle, so I'm a big fan of that. A lot of uh, close to real life problems are available there. We can we can see what we have to solve. We can take a help of other participants, that how they have solved that problem, and we can try to solve it, try to learn from our past experience. So I think if we can follow this roadmap, and I'm sure that the person would be able to grab a good opportunity in data science.
That's great. So two things you brought to light. First is it has to be a step-by-step approach. It has to be, a structured way of learning instead of directly trying to learn something very advanced. So if you know AI but you do not have the basic sense of data, it becomes a problem, right? So
Mhm.
that is a really nice input from you. And secondly, I agree with you. Practice is very important. It is like I'm sure all of us have had this experience in school when we listen to our maths teacher solving a problem on the board and we assume that we have understood it. But then when we actually have to solve it, if we have not done it ourselves before, we cannot do it. I think that the same
Exactly.
thing here. Simply reading something or listening to somebody or watching YouTube videos will not actually help until we actually immerse ourselves and get that kind of rigorous practice. Thank you, Ashok. Thank you very much for that. Murli, coming to you, the same question. You have also kind of evolved in this field of data engineering. So when you are now in a position, when you interview people, when you hire, what are the qualities that you look for in a person, technically and not technically also? What does it take for a person to make a cut into MNC like Walmart?
Okay, great. As Ashok said, like we have to start somewhere. Uh, like when we start, right, our goal should be very clear on like if I want to become a data engineer or data science scientist, right, I should have that clear mindset like, okay, I will learn something around this technology, which will give me a base, a setting base, which will help me to kind of achieve that role. So anytime like we should not be going a large steps at once, but small steps as one, as we have to take it small step at a time. Have to set some short-term goals. Okay, I will learn this technology, which will enable me for the next roles, right? So when I started as a data engineer, what uh, for first thing is you have to make a bond with the data for understanding it to the core, because when you try understanding data, you'll know like what insights can be derived out of it. So to start with, right, as I said earlier also, like a data engineer, when he wants to see that as a career, he should be first of all good with the database concepts, like how to query the data from a tables, how to apply some database functions on top of the tables. Like there are some peculiar problems within each of different industries have different problems. Like how to solve that problems innovatively, because always when you implement something, you look for like it's in an optimized way. Like some people have written thousand lines of code to do a single job, right? So that should not be a perspective. Initially, as like first 2 3 years of your career, you can do that because you will be getting kind of known to the technology, known to the coding languages that you work on. So first 2 3 years goes in that and understanding what you need to do next. So to start with, right, on the career perspective, at least a data engineer or data science engineer should have one language, basically Java or Python, to be known, because that helps to you to kind of write some small to solve some problems, small problems, which are can be done with using a function, written in using a function rather than writing a big lines of code. Secondly, with big data, you should be because as the data industry is also evolving, like the data is getting generated humongously, largely in the industries like retail, e-commerce, and all. So you should be knowing the big data technologies like Hive Hadoop, MapReduce, Spark, which is Spark. Spark is really a good basic, what do you call tech, wherein you can do magics with Spark, because the way how Hadoop has evolved over the period of time, Spark has given an additional point to kind of explore the fastness, the speed at which we can deliver the data. So Spark is very new right now, wherein people can explore learning that particular stuff. Secondly, is like as you are a data engineer or uh, data science engineer, right? Basically, you should know how to model the data, what data you need, how to pick the data from the data sources which you kind of want to query, and store it in a common ground. So the common ground when a data engineer kind of gets a data, right? It's called as data lake. So data lake is where you dump the data from different data sources, And next, when you transform the data, you move it to a data warehouse in a proper format, which is required for data analysts or data science engineers to kind of analyze the data further. So also, person should know what is data lake and what is data lake, data warehouse. So the combination of this two is called as lake house, wherein this is a single bed of data which is available for any like downstream engineers, like data engineers or business analysts, or basically the data science engineers. This the lakehouse pattern is kind of evolving nowadays, wherein there is a single bed of data where anybody can kind of plug in their code and extract the data and derive the insights. So this understanding is also required. Probably, as Ashok said, basically a person should know how to troubleshoot a data, because we have seen in my journey, I have seen so many data issues that are business reports, and how to solve that, because there are peculiar which will not be able to know at a first glance. So you should be knowing how to troubleshoot the data. That means whatever data model you have placed in your data warehouse or data lake, you should be knowing it end to end, and how the data enters into your system, how it gets transformed, and how it is basically given back to the uh, basically the data warehouse to derive the insights. So every end-to-end person should know, because when you know that, you'll be able to figure it out where the issue is. So there are data engineers who struggle initially, wherein they don't know if a data pipeline which loads the data to a target system has failed. They initially just call their seniors and say, okay, I have this issue, but until and unless you get that domain knowledge about end to end, you cannot troubleshoot that easily. So it takes a lot of time to troubleshoot, but experienced guy can solve that problem in a couple of minutes too. Yeah, and communication skills are very, very important, because for when dealing with our business partners, it is very much required to ask the right questions. What is an outcome that they need out of this data, and how they need it. So, and basically asking questions to business can make our knowledge reach, because they know the business better and we know the data better. So this correlation between these two is also really required in the data engineering space.
Right. Thanks, Muli. So a lot of things that you mentioned here, right? The awareness of different technologies. Probably this comes with experience over a period of time. For somebody who is fresh out of college, or for somebody who has, say, worked for 1 or 2 years and wants to transition into the data engineering domain, what is the fundamental set of expectations from a company?
Okay. So to start with, like whenever we start interviewing on any data engineer, right, we look upon what domain he has worked upon. Because for an experienced guy to know that domain, it is kind of quick, because he knows how the data lakes are set up, how the data warehouse is set up and all. So whenever someone with 1 or 2 years of experience, he wants to make really a career into it, then probably he should know basically SQL. Structured query language is a base of data engineering or data science. Basically, data science basically goes into more into uh, the data science libraries that we need to use to derive extract. But for data engineering, SQL is a very, very must. Knowing one language, basically Scala or PySpark, or basically Java or Python, is one thing which a person can read upon. And shell scripting is also good to know, because there are certain things which we can do the certain while setting up some data pipelines and all. We can do it using shell scripting. Plus, so knowing some Python libraries to derive some insights uh, when we want to write some smaller codes which can do the job in a few seconds, instead of writing that into a data pipeline, right? So Python libraries to know, like there are certain libraries which work on data, basically pandas and all, right? So a person should know about that. And when he kind of starts on, right now cloud is very much at least one of the cloud, like Azure, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, or AWS is very much required, because now each and every company is trying to move to cloud and save some cost, because whatever you have implemented in your on-premise, which is like a cost to the company. But when you implement on the cloud, there are certain aspects why we want to have to go to cloud, because cloud provides you many more advantages, like you can auto scale your resources to kind of any amount which you want to. Like if I'm using one machine in my on-premise and that is not suffice to do my job, I can go to cloud and I can procure as many as machines or in an on-demand way to get auto scale my clusters to do cloud provides. Like all the services on clouds are like available for engineers to kind of use it in a coordination way, wherein he can do a data engineer job. Sorry, what I mean is like knowing cloud is also one of the way to kind of uh, start your career in the data engineering space.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that, Murli. Anand, coming to you. In the recent past, we have seen a lot of successful startups in the analytics and data sciences domain, especially in these. When I've personally worked with some startups in the driverless car domain, and you are in the drone technology and other of these emerging technologies. Um, why is it that there is so much excitement among the startup community in the analytics? Also, this is a highly competitive field right now, with so many, even the MNCs and GCCs setting up their entire data science teams and the scaling their data science teams. What is the advantage that startups have in this sector? That is question number one. Second is, for someone looking to transition from an existing career into the data sciences domain, what is the advantage of starting with a startup? Could you please throw some light on that, please?
Sure. I'll take the second question first. So reskilling has become a very important part of this industry, and also learning new technologies has become inevitable to the workforce. So we believe that from a startup standpoint, I'm talking, we believe that while technology is a moving target, there are certain other factors like common sense, connecting the dots has become a scarce commodity. A quick example would be the way we recruit people is primarily using hackathons or having some kind of a small project that we give them. So if you say we want to probably fly a drone and find solutions for forest fires, right? Um, so one way of attacking the problem is there'll be a bunch of programmers who will basically say, okay, I'll have a thermal camera, it'll have radiometrics, it'll capture these images. They'll start processing those images using the data that they have. They'll put computer vision into play. They will convert those images into pixels. From pixels, they'll do measurements. They'll have the whole, they'll use PyTorch, they'll use TensorFlow, create those matrices, and then derive, okay, what is the temperature in these parts of the forest, in the other parts of the forest, and will it continue to have a fire, etc., and thereby solving the business problem using the underlying technologies that we mentioned. The other way of looking at it is connecting the dots. Can I solve this problem instead of just thinking of it like a forest fire? Can I solve a thermal problem, right? I can use any drone, any camera, but if I get a heat signature, I can use it for gas pipelines. I can use it for high-rise buildings where AC is leaking from their windows. Can I create cold signatures? When I say thermal problem, it is also cold problem, right? If I reverse temperature, it becomes chill. Can I think of solving the problem that way? So to your second question, I think there is a huge thrust about people not only reskilling, but also the general workforce thinking of connecting the dots and solving bigger problems, though what is presented to them can be just one small statement that they need to solve. But coming back to your first question on um, the biggest pros of people to start in startup, I think there are pros and cons. Working in corporate, working in startup, I think there are pros and cons in both. But I believe that the biggest pros for someone to start in a relatively newly established company is the agility of decisions and actions. It can be new technology, new markets, delivery schedules, delivery standards, whatever. Constant pivoting. So the failure rate is much faster and higher, I believe, in a startup. So we have probably a 3-day release schedule, a 5-day release schedule with all testing and all the bells and braces in place, which means the people will have much more operational freedom to execute and also go beyond their boundaries, whatever is being asked out of them. And that gives, in the long run, a very excellent mentality of risk taking and willingness to experiment, is what I feel, Shruti. So these three would be very interesting aspects for people to look out for jobs in startup environments.
Um, so from my personal experience of having worked with startups, I think the learning curve is also very fast and more diverse in a startup. Do you agree?
Steep, yeah, it is steep, and um, typically what happens is a person has to wear multiple hats. So I'll also have to be cautious to say that startup is not an environment for everybody, because a full stack developer, like Murli said, the person needs to be cloud agnostic. One customer could be in GCP, another customer could be in Azure. We have a customer in Middle East who is in Alibaba Cloud. The way the autoscalers work in them, Kubernetes configurations, these could differ in these, and the person has to adapt quickly to these changes over a weekend at times. So yeah, you're right. The learning curve is fantastic, but it is also steep in these cases, Shruti.
Right. Thank you, Molly. So, while we agree that, data science is doing great, there are so many opportunities. We see all these companies hiring. Many of our students are getting placed month on month, and we're seeing all these wonderful success stories. And then comes something like a chat GPT or something like that, which puts a lot of doubts in a lot of people's minds, saying, are our jobs at risk? Are we kind of creating an ecosystem that can become a threat to ourselves? Are we putting too much into automation and AI, and are we creating a system that will steal our jobs? What is your take on that? Are jobs really at risk with the development of automation, AI, machine learning, all these models? Ashok, what is your take on it?
Uh, so I could say that uh, so it depends. Like I believe if we are following the continuous learning, then I should not be of all the different tools that have. So I consider like Chat GPT as my biggest guided hand. So if I am building a model and I stuck there, I know where to go and find out how I can optimize my code. Instead of writing a 500 line of code, I can learn some new methods of doing that, right? But yeah, if I'm not learning something new, if I'm keep stucking on those old models and those old tools, then it can be a problem, because and that happened in the past as well. Some of the tools that were very helpful, I think a decade back, in current days, those are obsolete tools, right? No one use them. So it's all about how we are continuously upgrading ourselves. And second, I think there are the human factor. Chat GPT will never take that work. So most of the time what happens, when we build our models, before doing the development part, we have to use our critical thinking. We have to work with the business partners, as Murli said, we have to ask the right questions, to get our scope finalized, to get to know that, the problem that we are seeing, is that actually a problem, or we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So, all that human factor, that has to be done by us. And I think, the chat GPT like tools, that will make our work more easier. So, all the development time, I think that can be reduced with it. And
Right.
for troubleshooting, I see that, as, your biggest friend, if we take chat GPT, in the right way.
Right. As long as there needs to be a human behind the machine, I think jobs will always be there. Like you rightly said, the only hedge we have against this risk is to keep ourselves abreast of these developments and not stagnate. I think stagnation is a bigger risk than evolving technologies. I think that's
Correct?
what Murli, right. Murli, what's your take on it?
Yeah, to start on the funny note, basically what I can say is, even if you know how to ask ChatGPT what you need for your job, but when you go and give an interview, right, people will not ask what you do, ChatGPT, right? It is like they'll be asking all the core concepts or the fundamentals. Are you aware of the fundamentals and all? Because with this new, as the ChatGPT is kind of that is also has been built by an engineers which has evolved over the period of time by learning on in itself, and that is also the data that we feed into the ChatGPT, right? It is evolved on basis of that. So that is not a human, because as we know that humans have emotions attached, right? So while we are kind of learning, when we are kind of handling a project in a company, we have our emotion attached to the project. That ChatGPT cannot do it, right? Because we know how a project is critical to any stakeholders that we are working with, right? And one thing, like as we kind of go on to ChatGPT more and more, that will be an habit for us, and we will be losing the interest to know the core concepts of anything like around database. If I want to know, I can, if it is like MCQ questions, okay, you choose one among the other, right? But earlier when we were studying, we used to write a big paragraph of answers to know to that particular question. But this is like MCQs which has come, like ChatGPT is kind of an MCQ which has come. So, like, people will start losing the interest to know the core concept when we kind of move on to this kind of tools. And as the data space is concerned, right, I've taken some stats which I'll just try here. Like every day, right, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is generated. Okay, that means it's very, very huge through all the systems which are connected around us. 2.5 quintillion bytes of worth of data is generated. That means uh, there are certain problems within the industries which a human only can solve for. Like data engineering will not be a dying job in another 5 to 10 years. I'll call it, because data engineering work would be required to get the data ready for data science models and all. Data engineering is very much required, and data science job also, even though there are models which are data machine learning models which are just as we can use as a functions into our code when we try to build a machine learning model. That also kind of evolves over the period of time, because whenever you write an algorithm, the base algorithms are there as a setup, but on top of it, if we need an enhancement due to the change in the factors which are considered for that particular machine learning model, yes, definitely we have to, a human only has to write that code to evolve that particular machine learning model, right? So the jobs, as you see, with this evolving tools, the jobs are on the data side basically are not on the thread, because the data is getting generated humongously, and we would have our work safe.
Right. Anand, what is your take on it? Do you think technologies like these are a threat or more of an opportunity?
So, like both of them said, co-panelists said, I think I subscribe to the same thought, Shruti. There's nothing, but a little bit of philosophy here is, when Google came a few years back, right? It was one of the best search engines. There was Alta Vista, Dogpile. There were different search engines which came in, and we are moving to probably search 2.0. This is, according to us, if you look at it, it's a large language model, which means it refers to AI models that can generate NLPs, the natural language processing, but based on transformers, which means it looks at words. So if Google, if you type something, it gives us 10 options and we have to pick one of those options. Here it is slightly giving a much more curated answer, which we can use much easier. So all these things are trying to make our life more convenient. We just have to take a step back and say, do we need it? And if we need it, in what capacity do we need it? That is what would probably decide how this would proliferate in the future. So in short, we have to look at it as something that will be beneficial to the mankind, something that we can harness to make our lives better. And the job security part, again, I read a lot about history. So if you look at Industrial Revolution, if you look at the way machines came, the mills came, the factories came, then in the fintech space, ATMs came to replace tellers. But still the world is going on, right? And the gross GDP of nations have always been on the increase. The health rates have become better. The life expectancy has become better. The quality of life has become better. The whole reason why we were able to manufacture a vaccine like the different vaccines, mRNA and non-mRNA vaccines, was primarily because of biomedical engineering with a lot of data science clubbed to it, where genome sequencing could be done. And nearly 50% of it was AI, right? How different kinds of sequences that they made, they matched, and they created the vaccine. So being an optimist, I would look at it from that lens and pick whatever tools are available for the benefit of mankind, while being aware of any malpractices also that could happen because of it.
Ashita, I just want to add one point here.
Yeah.
To what the co-panel said, right? Basically, we should not be giving like humans should not be giving our basically uh, we ourselves into the hands of machines, because when that happens, the machines, because the algorithms what we have written are human driven and we out of humans knowledge base, which kind of drives the machines to take that particular action. But also machine stops at particular point of time when they don't see anything further action written into that particular line of code, right? So that can also happen. And another thing, as point of ChatGPT and all these toolings are concerned, right, which are more available for anybody to use in, but a security threat also comes into picture, wherein whenever for a particular company in consider, when you want to use this tool, everyone should be aware of, like, you should not be putting up companies basically a core code, basically the code which is very sensitive to the companies, this one, right, onto ChatGPT and get an answer on. So that is very much a person who is working on this has to kind of keep in mind, because that there are codes which are patented codes and all, and those are, should not be explored onto this all uh, this kind of tools. Yeah.
Right, right. You're right. So the emotional element, the consciousness, making conscious decisions, using it in the right manner, the wisdom. I think it's all about information with machines. What it lacks is the wisdom. The wisdom element is something that only humans can bring in, and I think we should have that advantage over any kind of artificial intelligence technology that comes in. Totally agree with all of you. Ashok, coming back to you, where do you see the future of business intelligence growing? I mean, if you take like the next 2 years view, um, what do you think? Where is it heading for? What are the future prospects?
Um, well, I will say that, BI would be.
Okay, I think we lost him. We'll give him a couple of minutes to join. Murli, same question to you. Um, what are the future prospects for data engineering?
Yeah, I think basically a future of data engineering concerned, we have to do this kind the data engineering kind of tasks basically with some automation into place, wherein currently whatever jobs has been done manually, right, has to be automated at some point of time. And that doesn't mean that will if I automate something, an engineer will lose his job, right? It is only to kind of uh, go along with the industry which is moving very faster, and that is helping us to kind of spend some time, like that same time when we kind of automate something helps us to kind of spend the same time to on learning something which is very new in the this technology space. So considering the future, we should be also aware of like we should be very much grounded to the fundamentals of data engineering or data science, and then kind of move towards spending some time across to find out new different automated ways to do the job, which will kind of help the industry to move faster and to kind of gain some more insights into whatever data that we have.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Anand, same questions to you. What do you think are the future prospects?
I think data without context is garbage. So any set of data that is there, I think the engineers would need to have context wrapped around it. What I mean is, suppose you're doing data engineering in the financial world, um, it is imperative that people know about what a loan is, what interest and charges, what is a savings account, what is a corporate account, etc. So that the data makes sense to them and they become successful data engineers. Similarly, if you're working in aerospace, defense, the domain knowledge should be tied. A context anchor should be put for data engineers and data scientists, apart from knowing the technologies that are used, because that will make them much more successful in building the right models with high degree of accuracy for their outputs. But definitely, this is an evergreen field, is what I feel, Shruti.
Right. We have a few questions. We'll take around 5 of them in the interest of time, and then we will have the concluding remarks. One of the common questions, I think, Murli, you can address this. How should I prepare for a job in data engineering? I know we have addressed this, but if you could just summarize it specific to that question.
Cool. 1 second. Yeah, for a data engineer job, basically to start with, when if you are a very fresher enough to start with the industry, you should be knowing the SQL basic, because in the engineering we learn about SQL database concepts and all, like what are different kinds of joins, how to query using a select query, how to insert the data into database, how to modify the data using update statements and all. So these are basic fundamental concepts which a person has to know. Then the further more advanced concepts like uh, indexing and transformations in the data and all comes up, where you should also be aware of those when you move uh, uh, ahead of your career. And basically, when you kind of reach a level wherein you know about the basic concepts right now, then comes up what you have to. Then comes up like you have to take the next roles in the data industry, which are like understanding the business requirements around. Like whenever you're solving a problem for a company, like I work for a retail domain, so I'll always look to solve a problem for a retail domain, which in if a customer is understanding the customer pain points is one major thing we have to consider here, because if my customer needs the data in this format, how can I get it? So that data engineer has to model it or design it in a such a way that it can give the customer, it can solve the problem for that customer. So whenever and knowing the big data is also very much important for a data engineer, wherein high Hadoop, MapReduce, Spark, all these like technologies, the languages and technologies are very much required. So to start with, because these technologies handle the huge data in the industry, and which is both in structured and non-structured format. So, and there are also NoSQL databases which have come into the market, which are also to solve the unstructured data problem. So when you are a data engineer, you should know what problem I can solve using uh, what problem in the industry I can solve using SQL databases, which will have a structured data, and what problems I can solve using NoSQL databases, which is for an unstructured data. Then comes the next part, which is like you should, I mean, whenever there is where you're working on a project in an industry, you also know how to troubleshoot the data. As I said earlier, like you should be knowing end-to-end domain, and you should be knowing what are questions which are solved using this particular data. Then only you can correlate and solve that problem in a way which is more efficient. And yeah, after that comes up like when you move towards the next roles in your data engineering, wherein staff or principal architect, principal architect, and all. There, probably the thing is you should only be looking horizontally across your in your industry horizontally. What are the technologies that we need to be using across the project? How you can use or make an technology reusable, because always in an industry we think of reusability, wherein whatever you develop should be usable by all the teams across your project, not within your project alone, but outside your project. So you have to package whatever data product you prepare or you design, right, has to be packaged in a certain way that it is reusable across the industry. And obviously you can go for a patent later on when your product is really good and has been designed in such a way that it is scalable across other data engineering sectors. So to start with, like knowing the basics, fundamentals, the few languages which I mentioned, and also another thing is cloud, right? Now, as everyone is moving to cloud, as I mentioned earlier, uh, cloud has certain data services that are exposed on cloud. So whenever in your company which has a virtual private net cloud, which is specific to your company and within bound of your company limits, there you can explore these services, cloud services related to data, and get and design the solutions over in cloud. Why? Because as I said earlier, cloud helps in auto scaling, saving the cost. Because I'll give an example. Earlier, we used to have Hadoop, which is on-premise, where the cloud cost of all the hardware, software, and all was taken by company, and it was huge because to support that we have to work with Cloudera or Hotel Networks for supporting that particular hardware. But now the industry has moving towards the cloud. That means everything is basically available for your cloud to use it on the on demand basis. Like whatever you use, you pay for it. That means you are not spending the whole year's amount or cost of that into that particular services that you use on cloud, but it is only for what you use in. So moving to cloud is also beneficial for a company to make a progress in our data engineering space.
Right. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Anand, another question specifically for you. Says, I graduated in 2022. I'm a fresher. I'm very interested in working in the startup sector. Is the startup sector open to hiring freshers like me?
Of course. What happens in the startup sector is primarily um, there are no levels like job levels or there are no seniority, juniority levels typically. So freshers are also welcome. Like I said, the typical evaluation criteria will be a problem statement that is given, and the candidate takes about a week to work that out and provide a prototype. It could be a working prototype, it could be a pseudo working prototype also. But what will be evaluated as a part of that is how hands-on the person is, what kind of critical thinking capabilities do they have, are they connecting the dots using common sense um, as the fundamental glue for this, and how they present this solution back is what we look at.
Right. So will it help if, along with learning these technologies, students also spend a good amount of time on platforms like HackerRank and these kind of things, so they get that practical exposure? Since you mentioned that when you hire, you also you use these kind of project-based or coding challenge-based techniques to hire people. So will
Yes.
that give them an advantage if they've put in a good amount of time on HackerRank challenges and things like that?
Yeah, so it's actually the hypothesis, right? So if a person has got good amount of check-ins in GitHub or has done a lot of work related to HackerRank, etc., which means that the person has a decent amount of hands-on knowledge, isn't it? So um, automatically it proves that the person, the candidate, has worked on real-life problems and has built models or built solutions or put some kind of prototypes out there which works. So definitely it will help.
Thank you. There's a question. I see that Ashok has rejoined. Ashok, a question specifically for you. The participant wants to know the difference between business analysis and business intelligence.
Okay. So basically, both the streams have some of the overlapping responsibilities. So when we talk about the business analysis, that covers most of the business KPIs. We churn the numbers. We try to find out what has happened in the past. The scope was moreover on the retrospective analysis, right? And when it comes to the business intelligence, it's not only to find out that what events have occurred in the past. um, the scope also defines that how the person can do the diagnostic analysis, that why such events have happened. So by the this role will be working on developing the different hypotheses, doing the various correlation and causation analysis, so that the right questions can be answered to the business, that hey, why such events are happening, or why your specific processes is doing such things. And the BI also have some of the overlapping responsibilities of the upstream and downstream roles. So business intelligence role is responsible of developing some of the data warehouses. They are responsible of processing the various data marts, and as an outcome of their analysis, they have to provide the preventive measures as well. So there, the data science module, or the ML part, that comes into picture. So basically, in a nutshell, data analysis is all about what has happened, and BI is all about why that has happened, and what could what can happen in the future if we don't work on this why factor.
Right. And the follow-up question to that is data analytics different from business analytics? These terms are used very interchangeably in the industries, and I understand the confusion among our participants also. Is data analytics very different from business analytics?
Well, I don't see much difference there. Data analytics, revolves more about the hidden patterns in the data. Business analytics, work on the multiple domains. So let's say, if we are doing a analysis of X process, the scope of business intelligence or business analytics would be to find out how this X process is interrelated to process Y, or how this is interrelated to the upstream processes of this process X. So basically, it's all about the scope, the methods, and the way the analysis is being conducted. It's there is no much a bigger difference in that.
Right. Thank you, Ashok. Anand, would you like to answer the question? According to you, what is the difference, or is there a difference?
Honestly, I think it is. I honestly I don't know the difference. Sorry about that. But to me, there is a difference between analytics and engineering, right? You can put data, business, whatever, as a predecessor word to that. Analytics is basically putting thinking about the data, whatever data you have, does it make sense, and deriving certain actionable outcomes out of that data. Engineering is primarily solving a problem. Suppose you want to throttle data, you want to have quicker retrieval of data, you want to ensure over the air updates. Those are all typically engineering problems which we solve. But after solving that, what can we do with the data that we have, and create models or create predictive analytics around that is what the analytics aspect would be. But honestly, I don't know the difference between business analytics and data analytics, Shruti.
Um, okay, the next question is Power BI required for a data engineering role? One of the participants, actually. Would one of you like to take that? Power BI is more of a business analytics, business intelligence tool, but is it used in data engineering in any way?
Can I take that, Shruti?
Is Power BI required for data engineering?
Okay. Yeah, basically, Power BI is basically a visualization tool, right? Where you kind of drag and drop certain palettes of whatever you want to represent how the data, like basically in a chart format or basically any visualization format, a heat map or a chart or a bar chart and anything around that. So Power BI is basically usual visualization tool, and that's part of one part of data engineering also. But before that comes the data engineering, where I all explained right how the data engineering should land up the data in a data warehousing, which will be required for Power BI to generate a report upon. So Power BI is a visualization tool, and it's an after you land the data in a data warehouse in a structured format or a format which is required for the tools like Power BI, business objects reports, or any quick sites and all these reporting tools to take the data from. So it's a visualization tool basically.
Right. So it's more needed in the data analytics and business intelligence space, but not so much in the data engineering space. Okay, one more interesting question. Probably one of you can take it up. For people who have career gaps, especially say people who are returning from a sabbatical for family reasons, or we also have a lot of people who venture into entrepreneurship and want to now get back into full-time employment. Is the industry open? And is there, yes,
Well, I can take that. So honestly speaking, I don't think so that that gap in the career uh, is relevant for your new job. Specifically, if we're talking about the data science, it's just yes, that yes, if you have uh, if you have learned that what are the new things have come up in the mo- in the market, during that gap, then it would be more easier for the person, to rejoin that role. But if the person has not spent so much time in that gap, so there, it may take some time, to grab, on the new tools or on the new technologies. But specified to that gap, no, I don't think so that that is anywhere relevant, to get your new job.
Right, and that is a message that we receive from a lot of other people also, that career gap is really not a barrier as long as you're updated with the technologies.
Hmm.
I think that fear can be put to rest. Would Anand, would you want to add?
That's a valid point. So I think we support people having career gaps. It can be due to various reasons, right? It can be personal reasons, maternity, working mothers, people who want to try something on their own, entrepreneurial stints. Some people who just want to have a break, sabbatical, all these. Um, so it is not at all looked down upon in the industry. That I can vouch for, both in the corporates and in the startup space, Shruti.
Yeah, thanks. So this is probably again open question. Can I get a job in data engineering and data analytics by learning Python and SQL? Are these two technologies enough for somebody to get a job in data engineering, data analytics? Would you want to take that?
Okay. Yeah, I'll take it up. Basically, yeah, knowing SQL is a base, which I called it out earlier. Like, should be knowing SQL and the fundamental concepts of SQL, because sometimes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, SQL is a base for data engineering, and a language like Python. Python alone can help you, because that at least one language one person should know to solve the business problems using a coding language. And SQL is a structured language which works upon a structured data which you put it in a database. So and also on top of it, knowing the like how knowing basically SQL, NoSQL database is also very much required. The thing is, like, you don't work on those technologies, but having a knowledge base of that would be required for either to crack your interviews, because that question can, if the company which you're going for an interview, if that is on a NoSQL database and you have only worked on SQL, so that one won't suffice their job need, right? So probably you should be knowing in and around your technology, basically NoSQL, SQL databases, Python, Scala is one thing, Spark is one another thing. So you'll be knowing this flavors of it, just to at least flavors and fundamentals of it to crack the interview.
Right.
Yeah.
And one follow-up question to that, you mentioned cloud as a important technology that people need to know. Any specific cloud service that is gaining popularity now? If somebody has to learn cloud, is there any specific cloud technology that they would focus on?
Yeah. And a data engineer job is to develop a data pipeline from source to a target where he wants to land the data, and get from different sources. Like the sources can be file, APIs, on SQL databases, NoSQL databases, and SharePoints and all. So the connectivity to this, there are different tools available in market, and specifically cloud is concerned, considered basically here. Uh, I work on basically Google Cloud. I've worked on Google Cloud, AWS and all. So current it is on GCP, which is Google Cloud Platform, wherein for Hadoop kind of architecture, if you want to explore, Dataproc would be one data cloud service that you can know more in detail. There is Dataflow in GCP that you have to know more. Plus Google Storage, which is basically to store the data, because on cloud, right? Uh, I'll give one example around how the data is arranged on how the model is on on-premise and how it is on cloud. So when you take a big data technology like Hadoop, on-premise, when you have the architecture of it, the storage and compute which is required to process the data is basically coupled, and in cloud, it is basically decoupled. What I meant by that is like basically storage is a separate service on cloud that you can use to store the data, and compute is a separate service. So when you want to use both of them, you can use in coordination to do the data processing. So Dataprog cloud storage would be one thing which I would prefer to learn more deeply into this on cloud technologies. Yeah.
All right. So one last question, and then we will have the closing remarks. This question is open to everybody. For somebody shifting from a non-IT sector or non-IT education qualification or some experience in non-IT shifting into data analytics or data engineering, what is the kind of scope? I think Murli, you are from, you did your graduation in a non-IT field, if I'm not wrong.
No, I have done it in engineering and computer science. Sorry.
Okay. Working in Walmart, what is the scope for people from non-IT technologies to make a transition into data engineering or data analytics?
Yeah, basically knowing the technology more better, because for non-IT, it takes some time to get adjusted with the technologies because they haven't gone through computer science background, probably like learning database systems, learning coding languages and all, right? So to correlate that, it become a bit difficult for from like some person has worked, has done commerce and he wants to kind of come into IT. It's a bit difficult, but if he is really enthusiastic to basically come into an IT role, then he has to uh, learn from everything from scratch. And the interest to learn this also matters over here. And industry doesn't look, if the person is very passionate about to uh, passionate and has a good work experience in this past, which he has proved into, right? Then obviously the next company which is going forward obviously expect basically will take him for the job role what they are preferring for.
Right. There is a wave in the industry today, which says skills over degrees. So if the skill is right, even if the degree is non-IT, the industry is still open. What they focus more on is how much skill do you have. Ashok, would you like to comment on that? Is the industry open to hiring people from non-technical into business intelligence, data analytics?
I think yes, it will. I'm not from the tech side. I started, as a ops guy, as my career, and I think yes, I completely, or I second Murli's thought that if you are a non-tech guy, the effort would be more, to learn everything from the scratch, and you have to try hard, practice a lot on them. But when you are prepared, know and you go to the interview room, people only look for the skills. No one look for from from which stream you have done your graduation. It all skills over the degree.
Right. Representing the startup segment, would you have a comment on this? Are non-IT people wanting to transition into these roles open? Is the industry open to hiring them, especially the startup sector?
Of course, of course. I think invariably what I've seen in the startup sector, like I said, the evaluation criteria is based on some project or some kind of assignment that is provided to them. And this is open to, it's very agnostic. It does not look at people with so many years of experience, so, with a background in any of the computer science fields, etc. So it is purely evaluated on how that assignment has turned out, and how beneficial the model has been created and what code has been written at that part. So there is no entry barrier for non-IT people as far as in the startup space, Shruti.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I think we have overshot the time by 5 minutes, so we will quickly close it. I'd like to thank all the panelists for spending time with us today and offering all these insights. I think we have learned about multiple things today. Firstly, about how technology has evolved. Also about what does it take for a person to get into these fields. What are the technologies they should learn, how they should learn it, what is the path they should follow for learning these things, both from companies like Walmart, from where Murli comes, and from the startup community. Again, the industry reinforces the fact that it is open to hiring people as long as the skill is strong. Doesn't matter if you have a gap, doesn't matter if you're from non-IT, doesn't matter if you're making a transition. What actually matters is, do you come with the skill sets that will help you perform in the company that you join. And startups can be a good bet if you're agile, if you're dynamic, if the learning curve, it's steep, it's challenging, but it is also very rewarding. Thank you very much for joining us. It was a great conversation. We will keep having these kind of conversations with other experts over the weeks to come. And thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and good luck and best wishes to all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anand.